Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another episode of the MBM podcast. I'm excited that you're joining me for today's episode of the show. And this week's episode of the podcast is brought to you in part by Offering Tree. Offering Tree is your one-stop shop for all things yoga business, including your website, your online classes, your class schedule, privates, workshops, retreats, courses, memberships, and so much more. So I will tell you more about Offering Tree later on in this episode and how it might be a good fit for you. But for now, maybe go check them out, offeringtree.com/MBO. And you can get a special little discount for listening to the show through that link. So be sure to check that out. And this week on the show, I am really excited to be joined by Michael Toru. Michael is a 500-hour registered yoga teacher, a YouTuber, and a videographer who's based in Victoria, British Columbia. And Michael and I have been connected on Instagram for quite a while now, probably a couple of years, and I've been watching his yoga journey over the last couple of years and was really excited to finally connect with him on the show. And so in this episode, Michael shares his journey as a yoga teacher, how he's gone from teaching full-time in yoga studios to stepping back from teaching and working on his online presence, including his YouTube channel and his media business. We discuss how the pandemic has been a time to dig deep and be honest with ourselves about what's bringing us joy, and then making changes and pivots from there. And he shares how he's done that in his own business. And he also shares what life has been like as a new dad. And this was pretty fun for me because a couple of months ago, I did some episodes with Kelly Smith and Jen Corley all about planning maternity leave. We had some good mom chats, but it's really fun to hear from a yoga teacher who's a new dad and how life as a new dad has been. And he also shares business lessons he's learned throughout his yoga business. So lots of good stuff happening in this episode. I hope that you enjoy hearing from Michael as much as I did. And without further ado, here he is. Michael, welcome to the podcast today. I'm really excited to have you here with me today.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited to chat with you. I just absolutely love this podcast and love Matcha Mornings too. I was actually just listening to Matcha Mornings today and listening to your reviews. So love your podcast. I'm really excited to be on.
Yeah, thanks so much for listening. And I'm excited to have you here. I know we connected through a mutual friend a couple of years ago, and it's been really fun to just watch, your yoga journey and all of that stuff. And you're out on Vancouver Island. So you live, well, I'm in Mexico now, so we live quite a ways away from each other. But if I'm home in Canada, we just live a province apart. And I'm really excited to just hear a little bit more about what you're up to, your yoga career, your yoga business, everything in between. But maybe let's back up a little bit. Can you tell me a little bit about your yoga story and how you got into yoga?
Absolutely. Yeah. So that journey began, I'm turning 34 very, very quickly. So it began when I was like roughly, I think around 21, 22. So about 12 or 13 years ago. And when I was 16, I was diagnosed with it was actually 19, I guess I was diagnosed. It was actually quite a few years before I got diagnosed, but I was suffering from ulcerative colitis, which is intestinal disease. And yeah, it was just like, it was really, really rough. And I was on all sorts of medications and eventually just got so bad. I was very close to dying actually. And had to get surgery, got my large intestine taken out. And after that, it was a journey of recovering. And I remember very distinctly waking up from that surgery and life feeling different somehow. And it's hard to describe exactly how, but it was just like something had shifted. And it was like I needed that experience to like wake up more to life. And it wasn't like it happened like instantly, but I remember like I didn't read before, wasn't like really interested in self-development or anything like that. And then as soon as I got the surgery, I woke up and there's this book, A Million Little Pieces. I don't know if you've heard of it, but I like started to read that book, and there was like, and then there's this kind of progression of like kind of slowly waking up, and then it was probably a couple of years after the surgery, I was like kind of getting back into bodybuilding and working out, and I was just finding like it wasn't like serving my body, and I think partly there's many factors to why I got ulcerative colitis, but one of the factors I think was kind of bodybuilding, and I actually did steroids, and I was taking all sorts of protein powders and like creatine stuff like nitric oxide. I mean, all sorts of crazy stuff. And my body was just like, was rejecting. I was like, this is not what I want to be doing. It was like, it was telling me through, like, now I can look back and see that my body was telling me something at the time wasn't, tuned in. And I don't know, I was just called to, somebody had mentioned something about yoga, and I was like, okay, I'll give this a try. And it was actually, I don't know if you've heard of it, Amanda, or some of the listeners, but Tony Horton, and he has this program called P90X, and it was really popular in the early, in like kind of the 2000s and 2010s and whatnot. And this is like this home kind of DVD set of different workouts, and in that there is yoga, and it's like Yoga X, and it was like 90 minutes. I remember trying that for the first time because there was all these other calisthenics. I just wanted to get ripped, and I was like, okay, I'll try this yoga thing. It's like, it's just all about flexibility. It's kind of, kind of dumb, I guess, whatever, but I'll give it a try. And I did it. And it just absolutely, I couldn't get through the 90 minutes. Like it absolutely kicked my ass. It was, I was so shocked by how hard it was. And to be honest, it was kind of good with him that it was more of like definitely more of like a power type of yoga, like a little bit more of like a fitness versus like a yin or a more gentle style of yoga. I was kind of good that it was that, because I was like, oh, like yoga doesn't have to just be about flexibility. There can be like a fitness aspect to it as well. And after that, I was kind of hooked. I did that class more and more times. I started to go online. I actually found who ended up being my teacher, Ian Finn of Blissology Yoga. I found him pretty early on a site that doesn't even exist anymore, but did some online yoga with him, like found like Megan Curry, some other amazing online teachers, and just like started building up, and was like, this is incredible. Went to the hot yoga studio in town that I eventually ended up teaching at years later. And it was like, I just kept doing it. And it was like less and less I wanted to do bodybuilding and powerlifting and all these other things. Cause I was just noticing, like, when I'm bodybuilding or I'm powerlifting, I'm like all tight and sore and bound up. But then when I do this yoga thing, I feel like open and expansive. So I like kind of balanced like kind of the two of them, but I just found more and more I was less wanting to do the weights and then just more wanting to do yoga. And then, this is obviously going over the course of years, but eventually I just kind of stopped doing the weights and more kind of just body weight calisthenic stuff, but a lot more yoga. And that was kind of the progression. I honestly had just my own practice and did it for a while. And then eventually it led into like, it's like, I have to, do a yoga teacher training. And my partner, Sarah, who I have my little girl Lennon with, this is like 6 years ago, or maybe it was 5 years ago, I guess, but she kind of pushed me into like, hey, you've been talking about this yoga teacher training, you have to take the leap. And then eventually I went to Bali and did my yoga teacher training with Ian Finn of Blissology Yoga. And then, so I guess that's a long answer to your question of how did I get into yoga, but that's the general story. There's obviously some things in between there, but yeah, it's been a journey for sure.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for sharing all of that. And I actually did my teacher training in Bali as well, not with Ian Finn, but I have had the pleasure of doing a class with him at Wanderlust a number of years ago, and he's incredible. So really cool that you were able to do that. And for you, were you kind of like, once you did the teacher training, were you like, yeah, like this is it, like this is what I want to do? Or what did your career kind of look like at that point?
Yeah, I went into it and I know a lot of people talk about, I'm just going to do a teacher training to expand my own practice. I don't plan on teaching at all. A lot of times those people, they end up teaching, but I was definitely someone who went into it feeling like I want to teach. I just knew it. I was like, I want to do this training. I want to go back to Victoria and I want to teach in the community. And yeah, I did the training and then we kind of stayed in Bali, traveled around. As you know, I'm sure from being there, like Bali is just this incredible place, incredible land. So we traveled around a bit. Then I got back and it was pretty much as soon as I got back, I did a mentorship with a local teacher who's actually also taught at Wanderlust. Her name's Katie Thacker. And we did, I did a mentorship with her, and it was one of the best things I could have done, because it was like, did the training, got back right away, invested money, did this mentorship with her. And she basically, mentorship's based around basically getting you into the studios to teach, and kind of like refining what you learned in your teacher training and the things that you can't learn. Because I'm sure, as you know, Amanda, and any of the listeners, that a 200 hour, you're like, whoa, 200 hours sounds so long, but like 200 hours is like, it's like nicking the surface in so many respects.
Yeah.
And there's just so much more to learn, right? So I basically like learned more how to cue, to move bodies, and kind of the things that you really need to be a studio teacher. And then from there, it was setting up, just like through Facebook, putting out, hey, I just got my teacher training, did this mentorship. I'm offering free classes in at Willows Beach, which is this beautiful beach in Victoria, and has like this grassy, big grassy field that overlooks on the ocean. And I just started hosting classes there, and just starting to teach. And obviously, I just remember feeling like so nervous, but took that leap, did that. And then from there, it was, reaching out to Oxygen. And if you're in Canada, a lot of people would recognize the Oxygen brand of studios. But I reached out to this Oxygen studio that had just opened up, and went in for the interview. And I just remember, again, being so nervous for that. But then, they wanted to hire me, and then I just started teaching from there. To start out very little, and then it just like grew, and then eventually it grew into basically, I think, like a lot of teachers, but being or maybe not like all teachers, but definitely for me, it was, being a studio teacher and making my full-time income, just teaching at tons of studios around town, teaching like 15 to 20 classes a week kind of thing, which was not ultimately sustainable, but, doing that for a good couple of years. And it was, I'm really grateful that I did that, but it was a hard journey, kind of having to try to make your income from just teaching studio classes, but I'm really glad that I did it though.
Yeah, for sure. This is something, I feel like this is such like a classic yoga teacher journey, right? Is like, you're so like wide-eyed and excited about teaching, which is such a beautiful thing. And just trying to get as much teaching experience as possible, and teaching at as many places in your community. And I think that it's so amazing to get that experience, especially when you're kind of new to teaching, because you just get to watch so many bodies and teach at so many studios and work with so many different people. And you really get to learn so much about the yoga teaching space and yourself as a teacher and your students, et cetera, et cetera. But like you said, teaching 15, 20 classes, especially at different studios around a city, is, super energetically draining and super exhausting, almost impossible if you end up getting sick or injured or something like that, and ultimately not really sustainable. So I'm curious, what did your journey look like as you were kind of like, hey, this isn't super sustainable. Like, this isn't something I'm going to be able to do, 5, 10, 20 years down the line.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it is really, true with the getting the sick, or, I got injured, just honestly teaching too much. My body was like, I don't like this. And I did end up getting injured and having to like teach through that kind of stuff. It was very, very challenging. Yeah. And transitioning out of that, I basically had to find the balance where, I was like, hey, I can, I'm going to teach like a certain amount. So I think from like 15 to 20 classes, I was like, hey, I'm going to cut it down to kind of like 8 to 10. And then even that is it, because the thing with, 8 to 10 doesn't sound like too much, but as every yoga teacher knows, you're not just teaching like, in 1 or 2 days, like 8 to 10 classes, and they're all nicely lined up. They're like all over the map, right? So that was still kind of a lot, but I ended up balancing it more with, I have a media business as well, kind of end up in like social media marketing and things like that. And I ended up doing a lot with actually yoga studios, and I still actually have a couple of yoga studio clients, but kind of balancing with doing like videography for them, and then creating video ads, and then putting that up on social media, doing that. And then just kind of like just figuring it out. Like I ended up connecting with a company called Warrior Addict, which is a men's yoga company out of the UK actually. And, did some content creation for them, like writing blog posts about yoga, about men's yoga and things like that. And it's kind of like piecemealing it together. Actually, I know that both of us, we worked with Elnora from 8 Minute Yoga and did some work with her as well, teaching creating some like online content for her, and then doing some other things. So it just kind of was like piecemealing it together, like in any way that I could, and ideally staying still in the yoga industry, but just kind of like making these connections and figuring out like how can I still be in the yoga industry, but like not just teaching studio classes, and figuring out different ways that I can basically make money. And it's just kind of continued on this journey to where I am today. And I wouldn't say it's like fully figured out by any means, but it's slowly getting there.
Yeah. I feel like do we ever really figure it out?
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know if we do. I feel like I haven't yet, but I can definitely relate to your journey. I was never teaching as many as 20 classes a week, but I think I was kind of getting to like the 5 to 10 range and feeling like, okay, this is like, more classes than I want to be teaching. I don't think I ever really wanted to be like a full-time yoga teacher, and started doing a lot of what you were talking about as well, like wanting to work in the yoga industry and just trying to figure out, how can I make enough money to survive while working in this industry while not burning myself out from teaching and all of that type of stuff. I'm curious if you can talk a little bit about maybe where you've landed kind of at this point with like what you've been balancing between your media company and your teaching. And I mean, especially with like the last couple of years too, with the pandemic being so strange for us yoga teachers. I'd love to hear kind of like where all of that's at.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, the pandemic, it's been very challenging. I know when your year in review, you touched on that on the matcha mornings, and it's been like this last couple of years, and I think for pretty much everybody you could talk to, this pandemic it's taken a heavy mental and emotional toll. And basically as soon as actually, right before the pandemic hit, I was in Bali again. So this was to actually be an assistant at the Bali Blissology training. And that was just an incredible experience. And I'm so glad that I leapt on that and I did that right before the pandemic hit, just because, for traveling and stuff became a lot harder after that, and other things. But as soon as I got back, it was pretty much mid-February in Canada. Things started to shut down basically in March. And it was so crazy that this pandemic had happened, and that it was like our whole world had been turned upside down, and especially for the yoga industry. I mean, all the yoga studios closed, and everybody was just kind of pivoting to figure out, okay, what are we going to do now, basically. And all the studios that I was teaching at basically were like, okay, we're going to like have online offerings. So we started doing Instagram lives, Facebook lives, some recording, getting it up on different websites. And I just remember like, we're just pivoting and doing whatever we could at that moment just to keep teaching. And throughout basically the whole pandemic, I ended up teaching, through the whole thing, like basic ninjing and, adapting to all the different changes and the different mandates. And it was just like, it was very, very emotional mentally as well. And it basically got to a point though, where in September, this past September, where I was like, hey, I need to take a break for my mental and my emotional health, because it just got to the point where the mandates, restrictions, I was like not resonating with some of them. And I was like, I could just tell in my heart, I was like, it was hard. I was like, I don't want to let go of, this identity as a yoga teacher, but I need to take a break for myself. And as well, just in October, on October 7th, my little girl Lennon was born. And it just felt right with, becoming a new dad, and with all the things that were going on with the pandemic, just to take a break. So I've actually haven't been really teaching at all since September, I've done like a few little things kind of here and there, but it's honestly felt really good to just allow myself to stop teaching after like when I came back from my teacher training. It literally was just got into it and just kept going hard, like, and really no stops, no breaks, and just really wanting to make it as a yoga teacher and just, loving it so much, and like my students, and just like wanting to just keep teaching, refining and getting better. But just like coming to a point where I was like, okay, I need to take this break. And it's honestly like the best decision I could have done. And at this point, so actually I have like one of my big projects been my YouTube channel. And I started that like about a year and a half ago. It's coming up close to 2 years, I guess. But starting teaching yoga, and I have about like 80 or more classes up on there now, but even taking like a break from that kind of come September. And it's honestly felt like really good and really nourishing. But just like slowly, like I'm feeling the inkling again to like start recording, getting some classes up on my YouTube again. And for right now, I've just been balancing like with my media business, doing more of that type of work. And that's kind of really felt good. And I have a lot of clients that are in, like I said, the yoga industry, but also like the health and wellness industry. So I feel like I'm still in this space. And it can be really difficult with, as many yoga teachers know, like making a living as a yoga teacher. And that's what this, podcast is based around. And, I feel like you said, Amanda, too, it's like, we're just figuring it out, right? And there's no getting to the end of the journey necessarily. And there's like these peaks and valleys and winding roads. And, when you think you've maybe figured it out, like the rug will be pulled out from under you and you're just like, hey, you're like, gotta readjust and figure it out again. So it's been one of those things where I haven't been able right now to like make my full-time income just from being a yoga teacher, but just pivoting and figuring it out as I go, just so that I can, still be in this space and, of wellness of the yoga industry. And yeah, it's a good space to be in. I'm actually like really happy where I'm at, but I guess there's still like, for me, there's like a little bit of like judgment about, maybe creating like online courses or doing more like Zoom classes, or creating more of like a structure and a system with my yoga business to like fully make it just for my yoga business. But, maybe in 2022, I got to do some reflecting in the next couple of weeks with the new year coming up, but maybe that will be one of my goals. But kind of where it's at right now. It's kind of a long, twisty road to explain it, but hopefully that made sense.
Yeah, no, and I appreciate you just sharing really authentically, because I think that a lot of us have really experienced similar things through the pandemic, like, the kind of the craziness of an industry pivoting really like 360 degrees and everything closing and going online, and, dealing with like ongoing mandates and rules. And, obviously living in Canada, things have been quite intense there over the last couple of years with shutdowns and lockdowns and mandates. And it's just been so unpredictable. And I know when the pandemic hit for me, I was in Panama, and my husband and I decided to come back to Canada, which we were really grateful for that decision at the time. And I was like, man, like all these people are unemployed and I have more work than I've like, ever had in my life, like supporting yoga studios and yoga teachers as they try to pivot their businesses. And I was so grateful for that, but very quickly also became like very burnt out with that. And I think that a lot of teachers experience that too. And a lot of studio owners experience that. And I think that one thing we don't talk about enough in this space, and probably just in life in general, is like, you can love something and kind of take a break from it, like it's okay for us to take a step away from our teaching and still like love being a yoga teacher. And I think that the pandemic has really, I guess, kind of shown that for a lot of us, that maybe we do need to like step away for a minute. And so I just appreciate you being candid with that, because I think sometimes it's hard for us to kind of grapple with it personally and then also share it with other people, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Thank you for noticing and appreciating that. That means a lot.
Hey, yoga teachers. We're just taking a quick break from the podcast episode to talk about Offering Tree and online courses. When it comes to courses, there are so many different ways that you can go about creating them. You could create a step-by-step video course that teaches students about a specific skill or specialization. You could sell or rent on-demand videos, repurposing your online classes. Or you could decide to bundle your courses or classes with a membership instead of selling them as standalone items. Every yoga business is different, but if you want to start offering on-demand video content, I recommend using Offering Tree. First of all, you'll have complete control of who gets your content, including who can see it and who can download it. You get unlimited video uploads, and you can offer content as a part of a membership, charge one-time fees, or use sliding scale pricing. Drip content out over time, offer limited access rentals, sell recordings, and so much more. The possibilities really are endless, and that's just one reason why I love Offering Tree. But don't just take it from me. There are so many users of Offering Tree that really love the software as much as I do. Chrisanne, a yoga teacher based in Colorado and the owner of Love Sauce Yoga, shared, "I just want to say thank you so much for this amazing website builder. Not only has it uplifted my confidence as an online yoga teacher, but it's helped me to find my niche in the yoga teaching world and connect with students." So if you're looking to get started with a website for your yoga business, or you're looking for an online tool that's easier and cheaper than what you're using now, definitely check out Offering Tree. And because you listen to MBO, you'll get a special discount. Just head over to offeringtree.com/MBO for 15% off an annual plan or 50% off 3 months. And don't forget that everyone gets a 14-day free trial. Once again, that's offeringtree.com/MBO. All right, now back to the show.
I think the other thing too I wanted to touch on is, I know I'm preparing for maternity leave and I'll have a little girl here soon as well. And I feel like we don't talk enough about the dad side of things. I'd love to hear a little bit about, just stepping into fatherhood, especially as an entrepreneur and a business owner, and what that's kind of been like for you.
Oh my gosh, thank you for this question. Yeah, it's been a really beautiful journey. And I feel like I've had to take all of my yoga, everything I've learned in yoga. And obviously, as many of us know, it's a lot of yoga is off the mat, and, kind of put it into being a father. And it's been, yeah. And I think as any parent would say it's extremely challenging, especially in the first few months of when you have a little baby. They just have so many needs, and the only way they can communicate is through crying a lot of times, or different sounds and things like that. And you're kind of trying to figure out this whole other language of a baby, and tuning into them. But it's been absolutely incredible. And I think one of the main things that she's kind of teaching me every single day is just a lot of patience and a lot of trust as well. Because, the patience, I guess, realizing that, I think maybe it's a lot of the masculine energy. Obviously, all of us have feminine and masculine energy, but I think I'm definitely tuned into my masculine quite a bit. And it's this very linear, very, this is what it is, go in this direction, let's get it done kind of thing. And sometimes I can be in that space a little bit too much. And I think she's shown me that, it's to have patience and to have trust, and that things aren't always going to be able to just be linear, and just because normally I would just get up, have a yoga practice, eat my breakfast, get right into work. And the days don't always, look like that. They can be, she has different needs, different appointments. She's, crying. My partner needs, a little bit of a break. So she goes, has a bath. And, I take her and I'll be rocking her in this little baby Bajorn bouncer thing that she loves. And, so that's been a beautiful journey, and having to kind of learn that. And I do feel really blessed that all of my work is at home, and, doing primarily, the videography and content creation. So basically I just work in the other room on my computer, and it's been nice to be able to kind of balance that and doing that. And then being just changing her diaper. I always like take the opportunity because Sarah, my partner, is always obviously breastfeeding, and like God bless moms, and you'll be doing this soon, Amanda. But yeah, the breastfeeding is just it's so full on, it's so intense that in like the best way, but like you have to be just so on it with them to gain their weight, and they just want breast milk, obviously. So it's been nice that obviously I'll just take her, I'll do like diaper changes, like intermittent between my work. And then, playing with her, I do like kind of tummy time. We kind of like joke that I'm her personal trainer or something. And I make time for the tummy time. So kind of training her with her like neck strength and, being in that different position. And that's actually been really fun too, to seeing how like babies move, and knowing all the different planes of movement and as human beings is how we're supposed to be moving in all these different ways, and seeing kind of how that evolution starts at the very beginning, and starting with kind of tummy time and like doing that training. And even though she cries and she hates it sometimes, I just know that I'm doing some good. So it almost feels like in a weird way I'm like channeling some of my yoga training into that. It feels like I'm just like getting her to do like constant like shalabasanas or something, but it's pretty funny.
You're still teaching yoga.
I'm still teaching yoga. Exactly. So yeah, basically it's been like kind of like intermittent, do some work, kind of like take care of her a little bit, play with her a little bit. But I do feel really blessed that I get to, work from home. And I think maybe one of the blessings of the pandemic has been that it really pushed me. I was kind of going in that direction already, but it really pushed me that next level of like having to like fully own that and fully own my business, and, fully, working at home basically. And it feels nice that I'm able to like experience her throughout the day. And because I know like so many people, some people have to like dads, will work up north or something like that, and have to like travel back, and or they'll work full 8-9 hour days or whatever somewhere else, and miss a lot of that. So I feel really blessed that I get to experience that, and kind of mixing my business, my entrepreneurial side with being a dad. It's been a beautiful journey for sure.
Yeah, thank you for sharing that, and it's really cool to hear that. And I do feel like it is a blessing to be able to work from home and to, experience your little girl, and also support your partner as well. Cause I think that's, you hear a lot of moms where they're like, I'm at home with like the kids all day, my husband's at work or my partner's at work. And that can be, a challenging dynamic, I think, for a couple in general. And I think it's hard, like as a dad, to miss out on these like big life moments of your kid. And then also, as a mom, you likely crave some like normalcy and adult conversation. And so I think it's really beautiful that you guys are able to find this like nice blend of you being able to support Sarah and be there with Lennon, and then also, work on your business and stuff. And I think that certainly being able to work from home has been a big silver lining of the pandemic. I think, like you mentioned, my business was mostly already online. So I was already really working remotely and that type of thing. But I think it's just gone that way more and more for more people. And I know not everyone loves it, but I think having the opportunity to be able to work from anywhere in the world is like a pretty, cool thing that's happened out of this like horrific global event that we've gone through.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Definitely agree about that.
And so I'd love to hear some business lessons that you've learned through your career, because you've done so much different stuff, from, teaching full-time at studios to working with studios to the videography side to the social media side of things. I know you've got, skill sets in marketing and that type of thing too. So I'm sure there's lots of different things that you've learned or that we could teach teachers through this conversation. So I'd love to hear some of that from you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you for asking that. What are the best business lessons that I've learned? Oh, and it's always that kind of integration of, like there's so much learning and then so much, just integrating at the same time. I think one of the biggest things that I have learned, and actually one of my big goals going forward, is I really want to make it as eventually a full-time YouTube creator. I just absolutely am enamored with YouTube and with videography and with editing and basically everything that goes into YouTube, with the marketing side of it. and I love telling stories. And one thing that, doing this YouTube part of my business, it's not quite, it's a business that makes no money currently, but it's one of those things that if you put enough time and energy, I know that it will. And actually my channel is like, it's like another 10, maybe even 5%, and it's going to be monetized. So that'll be kind of the first step towards making it a legit business. But one thing that it has taught me is just like the consistency. And I know a lot of people talk about this, but like this consistency of, creating videos, having video ideas, and then going and actually executing, filming them, creating that story, and then like sharing that story and putting it up on, social media, being, a little bit, fearless in some ways about that. We actually filmed our whole birth experience, and it was obviously more for my partner, being even more fearless for her. But sharing that kind of with the world. And, every time I put out a yoga practice on my channel and whatnot, is just like that, I guess that trust, but also that consistency has been really a giant lesson. And I think going forward in my business, I just want to get even more into the rhythm. Now I'm starting to get into the rhythm somewhat of being a new dad and a new father. I just want to like continue to get into this consistency, putting like regular content and offerings out there. And I think that is maybe like, one of the biggest lessons, and one of the lessons that I'm trying to learn. I kind of touched on it earlier, is this idea of creating like systems and structures for your business, and really setting those up, and like having, for me, like at the beginning of the week, either Sunday night or Monday morning, it's like kind of plan out the week, right? And in my calendar, putting like everything that I need to do. And like, that's kind of like the basic part of the system. But then even like more so, it's like, I would love to. And actually I want to watch that video or that podcast, pardon me, that you posted about like knowing when to hire like people for your business. Because eventually I would love to be able to like, hire people for my business to help with those systems and those structures, to help me with like, posting some of my content, or like creating maybe the thumbnail for my YouTube channel, or whatever it is. But I think that the structures and the systems, I'm slowly learning that a little bit more. That's something that I want to get into more for sure. And then also that consistency, and like just like that believing in yourself is kind of tied into it too, right? It's like, if you just believing in what you have to offer, and just going after it, and just consistently like chipping away at it. And because I know it's so easy to quit, and this entrepreneurial, it's so up and down. It's so mentally and emotionally taxing sometimes. And sometimes you just want to give up and be like, nobody cares. I'm not getting any likes on this post. Nobody's watching this video, whatever it is. But if you just consistently, you will create those. I'm sure you've heard of this, but the 1,000 true fans, right? You will slowly start to create it. And like those people that always comment on your posts, or always sending you messages, and like you're creating like real human connection. And just from that, I think it's just so worth it. And I mean, and I know that you're interviewing me, but one thing I would love to know about your business, and this is what when I was thinking about like how you have Wander Barn, and then all these different podcasts, but like it seems like your systems are just dialed for your business. And I wonder if that's true. But I'm like, you're balancing like all these different podcasts, and like your systems and structures must just be absolutely incredible. If you want to share a little bit about that, I'd love to learn from you a bit.
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks for that. I definitely don't think my systems are perfect, but I'm pretty like type A and pretty organized. So I feel like that definitely helps. But actually, you mentioned hiring, and I feel like hiring actually helped me put systems in place, because then all of a sudden I was like, oh, I can't just like do this thing that I've been doing. Like, for example, hiring somebody to edit my podcast meant that I needed to have like a production schedule and a calendar, and I had to organize where my intro and outro lived and organized when I sent them content so that they could get it out on time and all that type of stuff. And then it was the same thing. I hired somebody to help with production right around the time that I hired a VA, like an assistant to help me with things. And that was like a game changer too, because then it's like I have to teach her the things that I'm doing and do it in a way that actually makes sense to somebody other than me. So I feel like bringing people in on your team is probably actually a great way to do this. And it's been interesting because I'm preparing for maternity leave right now. And I've recognized, like, my husband and I have mostly done our travel podcast ourselves. And so as I'm kind of passing this stuff off to my VA and to the person who will help with our production with that while I'm offline, I'm like, oh man, things are not as organized on this end of things. But I think when you bring people in, that it kind of pushes you. Like, I think that was the biggest thing for me in terms of figuring out some systems. And it's the same thing, like hiring an accountant. I'm like, oh, well, I need to like organize things for her. I can't just send her this like hot mess that I'm doing over here by myself because, that's embarrassing. So I think that's what I would say would be actually like bringing some people in has been really beneficial for me.
Oh, that's amazing. Thanks for sharing about that. Yeah, I really can't wait to dive into that recent podcast that you did. That's a little bit more all about that. So that's awesome.
Yeah, for sure. And yeah, thanks for sharing everything that you shared as well. I think too, one thing I wanted to touch on with what you were talking about was just with like building a YouTube channel and creating content and all of that type of stuff. I think we live in this world where we're consistently looking for like instant gratification, I think. And if things don't work, like the first time we do them or the first few times we do them, it's so easy for us to kind of just like give up a little bit. And I think I know this very much from building a podcast. And I think creating a YouTube channel and a following is very similar, is like, you do have to be consistent and you have to be really patient and you have to understand that it takes time to get those 1,000 true fans. And there might be, a big chunk of time where maybe you're not making any money doing it and you're putting like blood, sweat, and tears into this stuff. But if you keep doing it and you keep doing it consistently and you keep showing up, people will show up for you too. And so I think it's really amazing. I know you're getting close to 1,000 followers, right? Like you'll probably have 1,000 followers for sure by the time this goes out.
Yeah, well, it's I mean, I would hope so. Let's pray and hope. Yeah, it's been a slow build with the YouTube channel. Like I said, it's a little bit over a year and a half since I started, and it's been growing very like steadily and slowly, but it is growing. And yeah, it is interesting, this kind of culture of instant gratification, kind of instant fixes and things like that. But I don't know, I just have this like overwhelming, like it feels like in my heart that I need to do this, and like however long it takes, I'm just on that journey and I'm committed to it. And I also just love it so much. And like I touched on earlier, like I love all the aspects about YouTube, and I want to make this my main business or a very significant part of my business. And yeah, just growing it, that consistency, and every comment that you get on a video, every personal message that you get from someone saying, oh, this yoga practice like really like changed my day, or this other video lifted me up, or whatever it is, like it's those little things that keep you going. And yeah, for anybody that's listening that maybe has a YouTube channel or has a podcast or has a Instagram that they're sharing something on, just like just that keeping going, and just like allowing like just one new subscriber or one new comment or one new personal message to like keep fueling you forward, because it is a long journey. And but I think it's just so worth it for me personally.
Yeah, no, I think that that's really cool. And I can really relate to that from the perspective of like with the podcast as well. And just feeling like, I just don't want to give up on this thing, even if it takes a while. And it's really cool once you're able to like monetize something creative, like your creative content. And I think it's just one of those things where like we have to work for it a little bit, and that's okay. And some people don't want to do that, and that's okay too. But I really admire the fact that you're just continuing to push yourself with this.
Thank you so much.
And so, do you have any other business lessons that you want to share with myself or listeners today?
Oh, that's such a good question. It's like one of those one of those questions being put on the spot where I'm like, what other business lessons would I want to share? Because it's like for me, it has been, yeah, it's been consistency, it's been trust, yeah, it's like adapting. Honestly, the whole evolution through the pandemic and everything like that.
Amazing. Well, you've shared some really great stuff. And I think, yeah, the trust piece is huge. And the evolution piece, I think a lot of us can really relate to that over the last couple of years. And yeah, I'm just really grateful for everything you've shared here today, Michael. Can you tell listeners where they can go to like follow you on Instagram, YouTube, all the places that you are online?
Absolutely. Yeah. So basically, it's at Michael Toru on Instagram, and Toru is Toru. And on my YouTube channel, it's Michael Toru. Actually, if you type in "yoga with Michael," I'll definitely come up as well. And yeah, it's basically mainly Instagram and YouTube. I think, I have a Facebook page that I post to a little bit, but those are kind of like the two main channels that I absolutely love to connect with people on. And like I said, yeah, send a comment, send a message. And I genuinely like to use social media for social aspect of it and actually genuinely connecting with people. It's interesting with social media because a lot of it I feel has become this, just the likes and like you'll comment maybe and like that person will never see it or they don't comment back. Maybe they do and they're just really busy and that's totally fine too. But I really love to like actually create a relationship with people. So yeah, please, if you're listening and you feel inclined, send me a message and I would love to connect.
Amazing. Thank you so much for your time today and for just sharing your story and your wealth of knowledge.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Amanda, for having me on this podcast. And yeah, everything that you're doing and everything that you're sharing with the world, it's really beautiful and really needed.
Thank you.
All right, friends, I hope that you enjoyed that episode of the podcast with Michael Toru. Make sure you go check him out, check out his YouTube channel, follow along with his videos, maybe even practice with him online. And of course, a huge thank you to Offering Tree for sponsoring this episode of the show. Make sure you go check them out, offeringtree.com/MBO, and send them an email if you have any questions about how they might be able to support you and your business. That's support@offeringtree.com. And a huge thank you to you for listening to this episode of the show. Thank you for sharing with your other yoga teacher friends and supporting the podcast. I truly couldn't do it without you. All right, that's all from me, and I will see you next week. Bye for now.